Here's the first type of problem that's going to be on the test tomorrow. You'll be given some i's like this, and you have to determine what the simplified answer is. The easiest way to do it is try to group them in terms of 4s if they're large enough. I to the third and I to the first is a 4, which is what? 1. And then I have I to the first, I to the first, I to the second. What do those add up? I to the fourth, so that would be 1 as well. So 1 times 1 is 1. Anytime you see an I, it's to the first power, if there's nothing written. I to the second would be -1. If you have a bunch of lower exponents, you might want to group them in terms of 2's, which would be a -1. The next one you have to do is this. 3 over I. What do I do to simplify that? Multiply the top and the bottom by I. So you get 3I over I squared. I squared is what? -1. So the final answer would be -3I, because that'll cancel out. The next one you have to know how to do is I minus 3 over I. So you still multiply the top and the bottom by I. So I times I is I squared, and I times a -3 is -3I. That times that is I squared. This is -1. Keep the -3I. That's a -1. So you got to change the sign of everything. 1 plus 3I. Now if it turns out to be something like this, 4 over I to the third, what would I multiply the top and the bottom by? I. And then you'd get 4I over I to the fourth, which is 4I over 1. Answer is just 4. Look at that. Alright. On this one, if I had... I didn't mean to write that, I'll just scratch it out. If I had 6I over I squared, is there a need to multiply the top and the bottom by anything? What can I do? Yeah. No need to multiply the top and the bottom, because this eliminates itself to a -1. Then just change the sign on the top. I plus 3, actually this is going to be I squared plus 3I over I to the third. What can I do on this one? We can multiply by I on the top and the bottom to get I to the third plus 3I squared over I to the fourth. What's this? -I. And what does this become? Yeah, -3, because of this -1 times 3. On the bottom is what? Is this the final answer? What do we have to do? -3 minus I. You got to make sure the constants come first and the I term second when that happens. This will be the most difficult problem on the test. I plus 3 over I minus 1. Do you remember what you have to do for that? Yeah, whatever's on the bottom, change the sign and multiply the top and the bottom by that. How do I multiply these two together? Square that to get I squared. You always square this one, put a minus sign, and then square this one. And then on the top you have to go I times I is I squared. I times 1 is I. 3 times I is 3I. And 3 times 1 is 3. I squared is -1. I plus 3I is 4I. And then you have a 3. On the bottom, that's -1. minus 1. So negative 1 plus 3 is 2. Keep the plus 4i. And this is a negative 2. What can I do to simplify that? You can divide everything by 2 and also do what? Change the sign. So in other words, you're dividing everything on the top by a negative 2. So 2 divided by negative 2 is negative 1, and 4i divided by negative 2 is negative 2i. So negative 1 minus 2i is the answer.